Hey there, welcome to the podcast for creatives. I'm Sasha Souza, and I have been in the creative events industry for over 25 years as the CEO of Sasha Souza Events, producing some of the most trend-setting and creatively colorful events that you've seen in magazines, online, and in books. I am also a digital CEO course creator, mentor, and serve the industry through my Creative Collective monthly membership. I am excited to have you join me for the podcast for creatives, where I can share the biggest lessons and the biggest wins of my business and of my creative friends. Let's go. All right, guys, today's episode, we are talking about Copycat, Dirty Rat. And I know that when I say that, Copycat, Dirty Rat, you hear it in a very sing-songy way. Copycat, Dirty Rat. I know I do. But I am here to talk to you today about the idea of copying. And anybody who's had kids or even remembers being in like third and fourth grade where kids are, thinking that they're super creative and they're doing something unique and different. And then somebody, does the exact same thing. And then it becomes this huge issue on the playground, right? And basically they feel like they created something and somebody else copied them. So that is our lesson for today. And our quote that I think fits this so perfectly says, you can't look at the competition and say you're going to do it better. You have to look at the competition and say you're going to do it differently. And that is Steve Jobs, my friends, the creator of the predecessor of whatever phone you may be holding in your hand right now, if you're an Apple user, and who created the MacBook. And that is what I'm recording this on, y'all. So I'm going to say that Apple has done that very, very well, not looking at how they can do something better, but how they can do it different. So let's talk about what I think is a really highly controversial subject. And I am not one to steer away from controversy. For any of you guys who are on my Facebook page, you would know that. So I am going to say it's controversial because as a creative, we want to use our talents to develop really unique outcomes for our clients. And I know also, first off, I'm not an attorney, and these are my opinions and not legal advice and all that good stuff, because we're going to talk a little bit about copyright and what you can copy and what you're not considered being copied. But I will say that there's a lot of controversy. I hear people, and I say here, on Facebook, I see people saying, so-and-so copied my idea. I did this thing for this bride or this client, and somebody else took the idea and copied it and did it also. And it's going to happen. I don't know any other way to say it. Like, we're not talking about copywriting images or videos or books or music lyrics. I'm talking about ideas or concepts or methods and systems. Those are not able to be copywritten. But you can copyright the image taken by the photographer, for example. The photographer owns copyright, but they don't own the copyright to the pose and the location. So somebody else can go right behind them, do the same pose, same location. And that's not copywritten to that photographer. It's copywritten to the photographer who took that picture. So that is just how it goes, folks. You can only copyright certain things about a recipe. You can't copyright just a recipe as it's written. It just doesn't happen. So when you get copied, and I'm going to give you some very concrete examples about how I have personally been copied, and when I've been copied, what I've done about it, because I think there's a lot of really good lessons. And I've been copied so many times. And like my most egregious one, I think, is when somebody who's no longer in the event industry, but she is kind of a famous name, who was in the event industry for a short time and was one of my interns, when she copied my entire About Me section off my website. I mean, the entire thing, like soup to nuts. And if you read, that might not sound really like shocking. You're like, okay, well, so, she created an event planning industry, a company, and, she creates these types of events, what have you. But it wasn't that simple, my friends. No. The text actually at the beginning said, Sasha was born to a flower child mom who encouraged her daughter's flair for the dramatic. It was a very specific set of words. And those words were unique to me, in that I was born in 1969 to a flower child mom who was a hippie belly dancer, who hung out with the Hells Angels and married a truck driver. And I had a very interesting time growing up, and I would never change it for anything in a bazillion years. It was all very unique and different and really led me to be the person I am now. But I'm sorry, that is not her story. This is my story. And it wasn't as simple as, like I said, Sasha graduated from such and such college, and she had always felt like she wanted to be an event planner. And so she planned her friends and family wedding, and then she got married and started her own business. That wasn't the story. And she didn't just copy the first sentence. It was truly the entire thing about the fact that I had a background in an internal audit, and I taught for a college and all these things. And so, I confronted her about it. I was like, you stole my entire About Me page. And her response was, well, it's sort of my story too. And I was like, come again? I don't think I actually heard what you just said. She was like, that's kind of my story too. So, it resonated with me. And she truly refused to change it. Now, my website's copywritten. What am I going to do? Send her a C&D letter and take her to court? No, I just changed my website. I was like, forget this BS, and moved on, because it just wasn't unique anymore. It didn't feel like me anymore. So I went with a much more, classic bio, which is fine, but it's still sprinkled with all of my things. And that part of my bio, by the way, that used to be on my website, is written by my publicist. So it wasn't as if I had, just come up with it. It was actually crafted for me. So, I've also had former taglines that I've used. So my business has used 3 different types of taglines. First one I created was exotic, stylish, unique. 3 words, each with a period right after. And I am not going to even lie. In 2017, I was working with a potential mentoring client, and I try not to look at their websites in advance because I really want to kind of have it fresh when I'm first talking to them. And those 3 words were on her website. I almost passed out, and I said, "Ugh, that's crazy. I created that because I felt like I was doing exotic events. I was working, in other countries and doing events, and stylish, meaning the client style and unique to them and who they are." And, another one of mine was, we lived to party. There was a caterer in the area, and his tagline was, we give good party. And I was like, that's creative. So I made it different in we live to party. And so I had that one for a long time. And then recently we put the on awesome. And that's mainly because as a kid of the 80s, I used the words rad, awesome, dude, and stoked, and hella, probably way more than any 50-year-old woman should. But my tagline was, we put the on awesome. And I found that on another person's website. So again, hey, I'm just over here influencing the industry. And, that's okay. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, they stole from me. I've had full events copied straight off of my website. It's nuts. I have people out there. I have a great tribe. I have a big reach of a lot of people that I've known for a long time. And I get, emails with snapshots of people's websites and Instagrams and things like that where I'm not attributed, or they've said that it's their event. And they sent it to me. And, I used to write a cease and desist letter, and listen, this is the thing. People who do this will always blame the assistant. They'll blame their web designer. They'll blame the intern. They'll blame the VA. They'll blame their cat. They'll blame the mailman. They'll blame the Instacart driver. It'll be everybody but them. So what are you going to do? Not a damn thing. You're just going to let it go. So I recently read a post about somebody in the online industry who does education for creative event professionals, who was concerned about people in her industry signing up for a free download. And when I read that, I thought to myself, anytime I put something out there, it could be copied. And I know that. So when I put out a downloadable, or I put out a new event on Instagram, or I put it out on my blog or on Facebook, you just have to write that off. Certainly not if they copy the entire thing word for word. That is definitely something to have a conversation about. If you're a photographer and they copy your image and use your image, that is something to talk about, because, by the way, that's not okay. I am not saying that any format, it is okay to take copywritten images, video, plagiarize, use music lyrics and things like that don't belong to you. So don't think that at all. But I will say this. What I do and how I handle this is very, very simple. I unfollow people that I feel competitive with. I just do. I tend to be very, I guess the term would be like easily distracted, right? So sometimes I'll fall down a rabbit hole of looking at stuff like that. And that's really not very good for me. So I just don't follow people that I feel competitive with. But I also have to say to you that you have to focus on yourself. And this is what I really, really know. And this is what I tell my mentoring clients. If you follow people that you feel competitive with, and you're sitting here wondering why you're not getting that job, or why you're not getting the phone call, or why you're not getting the client, or why you're not doing those events, you're spending way more time and energy than is at all necessary on somebody else's business, and you're not spending it watering your own grass, so to speak. So I would encourage you to delete all of that. Start to focus on yourself, build your own brand, and water your own grass. Do not sit here and worry about such and such person in your industry. Worry about yourself. So you also have to understand that if you put something out there and it gets copied, that's what happens when you're a trendsetter. Talk to anybody who's in the upper echelons of the industry, and they will tell you it just happens. Once we put it out there and it gets utilized by somebody else or made, better or different, fantastic. It no longer belongs to us. It is our gift to other creatives. And you can use that as inspiration and such. But you just have to try and make it different. Another thing that you can do for yourself is not take all of your ideas from things you see on Pinterest, right? So one of the things that we really ask our clients to do is to use Pinterest as a jumping off point for inspiration. For example, pin bouquets and, pin all the hair and makeup that you want, but you need to give me other substance so that I can create this event for you. That way, I'm ensuring that I am able to create something that is really unique, and I'm not taking, ideas from other event creatives and turning them over as my own. And that's a whole different conversation on who owns the art that you're selling as part of the inspiration board that you're sending to your client. Because if you're taking photographs that are copywritten off of Pinterest and putting them on an inspiration board and charging your client for that inspiration board, those aren't your images. They belong to the photographer. And oh my God, I think that's a whole different podcast that we could get into. But it is not super good for you to be, it really hinders your creativity. If you only have a client pinning things and showing you things that they want that are exactly from Pinterest or magazine or things like that. So, and you also have to be able to hone your selling skills and sell them into things that they haven't seen already into Pinterest. So that way you're creating unique trend-setting designs, putting it out there as your gift to the creative event industry, and really creating beauty and feeling really good about it and moving your business in a much more forward direction than you maybe feel like you have in the past. But I want to tell you, in our next few minutes together, 3 things that we've championed that have become trends. And you'll hear me speak about these things with a joyful heart. I don't say this as, I did this and I created this and it came from my brain and the brain of my floral designer, my decor partners, and you copied it. That will never, ever be my mindset, because I've moved so far past that in my career and in how I think about the business and how I think about the people who are in this business and the people that they serve. So let's go. Number 1 is the photo wall. And we're not talking about a photo booth and, people all climb in the photo booth or where people sit in front of a wall. We're talking about an actual installation. And this piece was truly a wall. And it was 8 feet wide by 4 feet tall and was covered in wallpaper on one side. And cut out were frames that people would put their faces in. And in those frames, we also on the front, we put old-timey family photos. So, instead of displaying the family photos on a table with the guest book or the escort cards or any sort of tchotchke trinkety favor table, we instead put them on the front of this wall. So he had all of their beautiful family pictures, and people would stand behind the wall and put their heads and sometimes their butts and their arms and all kinds of other parts through these frames. And it was really, really neat. So we created that in 2009 for a client who got married up in northern wine country, so kind of Sonoma County. And it was spectacular. Nobody had ever seen it before. So we submitted it as a trend and had the event published, and it took off. If you go on Pinterest and you search for, photo wall, wedding photo wall, chances are one of those pictures is going to be similar to the one that we did for that wedding. And that was, seeing it get copied initially, I was like, and now I'm just like, cool, it didn't take me long to go, that's rad. They did a good job. I like what they did with it there. And I believe that gave to the next iteration, which was the wall behind with the chairs in front and the much more styled photography, which I think is super rad because, again, it fed into somebody else's creativity who went ahead and made it different. Super, super, super inspiring to me. The next thing is lounge furniture. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I created soft seating, an entire industry of soft seating, but I will tell you that in 1999, I went to Z Gallery and I spent like $3,800 on a couch and a love seat and a side chair and a coffee table and 2 end tables because I was moving into a new house. So I bought all this beautiful furniture that I wanted, and I spent at that time, really quite a bit of cash on it. And I had a client, and she said to me, I wish that I could just bring that indoors outside. She said, I want it, because it was a really small wedding. She said, I want it to feel like a living room. And like, people are just like in my home and it feels cozy. And I was like, I'll rent you my furniture. And so I rented her the furniture for $3,000. And we ended up renting that same furniture for like $4 years. Eventually, I think the least expensive we were renting it was like $1,500. And it would still go out many, many times a year. That thing was a cash cow because I could not get couches for rental. And so not in this like really cozy, soft kind of, living room-esque feeling. And it fit really well with the Northern California wine country. So it was perfect. And I'll tell you so many stories about that furniture in that there's one event where it actually was on a lawn. It was on the third tee of a golf course and the sprinklers went on. The sprinklers went on at like 10 p.m. Party was over at midnight. People were sitting in the lounge and the sprinkler was right underneath the couch. So we had to dry that out before we could rent it again and make sure it was still, in really, really good shape. I was super sad when that furniture was done because that was amazing. And so again, not saying I invented the soft seating industry by any means, but for what this type of furniture was outside in wine country, nobody else had it. So the next thing is a s'mores table. So in 2004, we created a 64-foot long flaming fire table. And this was incredible. The table itself had a line of flame all the way down. Guests were seated on either side. The table was covered in palm leaves, and it had a skirt, grass skirt around the outside that was fire retardant. And there was, like really cool Mexican tile and such because we created it in Mexico. And so we hauled that thing down to Mexico, hauled it back in 6-foot sections. And not long after, a client of ours was getting married on a hill in Sonoma. And she said, I love s'mores. She told me in her questionnaire, I just love s'mores so much. And I was like, oh, I wonder if we can do that. And I knew that I couldn't do a wood burning fire pit. It just was not going to be a thing because of fire hazard. She got married in April, but still. So we ended up using a 6-foot section of our table and creating a bar height table that was done in tile. And I rented all the s'mores stuff for her. And I was like, I think we can make s'mores. And so we did. We rented her the s'mores table. And I won't find many photos of that on Pinterest, but I will see how they made it different in that people were able to take a trough and they filled it with lava rocks and sterno and created s'mores tables. And that I've actually had that pinned from some of our clients in the past. And I'm like, hey, let me show you the original here. It's super cool. So I can sell them on a s'mores table. And that looks a little bit different. So those are like 3 things that I look at and I say, we made a difference. We created something and now I can take that and I can go, look how people use their own creativity. So I hope if you're listening to this, that you will just take the words they copied me out of your vernacular and just get rid of it and put it aside and just know that, as creatives, some people tend to look for inspiration, and that inspiration it's harder for people to learn how to sell an original unseen idea. And so that's really just training. You have to learn how to sell something that people can't see, touch, taste, or feel. They can't experience it before the event. So that is just something you're going to have to hone. But just let it go. Know that knockoffs are going to happen. Entire industries are built just on the knockoff, right? So I just say be like Elsa and let it go. But entire industries will come up and fashion designers get their work knocked off by the time it's walked down the runway. It's currently being made somewhere else for cheaper. And is it right? Absolutely not. Does it happen? It absolutely does. So what I'm encouraging you to do is when you see somebody else's event come down the runway, that you look at it as ways that you can use it to inspire yourself to make something different, using that as your inspiration, as opposed to taking the item or taking a photo from the client and repeating it. It's basically regurgitation of the same thing over and over and over and over. And then you wonder why you're still doing mason jars and rounds of wood underneath them on your guest dining tables. And you're still wondering why you're only able to do greenery runners. So you can't wonder that if you only provide clients with ideas that are directly from somebody else's idea. I hope that all kind of makes sense. This also goes into creating your own style. If you sit down and you think of the people that you honor in this industry and who you feel have made a mark in this industry, or you want to emulate but not copy in this industry, all of them have a unique look. And that unique look is really important to their brand and to who they are. So I know that my company has a very unique look. I can look at so many people that I know and go, very unique. That's definitely that person. That's definitely that person. That's definitely that person. So start to think about how you can develop whatever your unique look or unique take is on your events and make that happen. Ours are incredibly colorful, complex, outdoor events that marry not only the natural environment, but also a really strong sense of colorful design. And that is where we excel. And that is really our sweet spot. It isn't in creating these, white weddings with green and white and rose gold. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just not our style. We don't get hired for that. And that's okay, because the client that I work for and that seeks me out understands what I do and that I have a sense of style that I bring to their event that makes their event that much better and their guest experience that much better. So strongly encourage you to consider creating your own style or figuring out what that is. And then you have to decide who you're going to be. I work with a team of people. That team is so focused on being different and unique and creative and using different types of materials and different types of techniques. If that is you, find your people and then create these really spectacular events. Show them to your clients. Use those ideas and then turn them out to the world. Because if you don't, nobody's going to know that you did it. And if nobody knows that you did it, how are you going to become a trendsetter, right? So you just have to it's like your baby, right? So your son or daughter grows up and you're like, it's time for you to leave the nest. You need to learn how to let your events leave the nest and stop saying copycat, dirty rat. Until next time, you guys, I cannot wait to tell you more stories. Go out there and create the most epically beautiful events that you could ever possibly imagine.